I felt really dumb, you know. It was a fault on my end. You know, I apologize for making everyone look bad.
Victor Ortiz, born January 31st, 1987. Victor Ortiz is one of the most misunderstood fighters of his generation. Depending on who you ask, he'll either be remembered as a talented former world champion who never reached his full potential, or the boxer who quit against Marcos Maidana and later got knocked out by Floyd Mayweather in one of the strangest endings the sport has ever seen. The unfortunate part is that those moments have become so attached to his name that they've almost erased everything else. And that's a shame, because there was a time when Ortiz looked like he had everything needed to become one of boxing's next big stars. He was young, explosive, aggressive, and possessed the kind of knockout power that made every fight worth watching. Promoters loved him, fans were excited about him, and it felt like he was on the verge of becoming one of the faces of the sport. He even climbed all the way to the top and captured a world championship, something countless fighters spend their entire lives chasing and never achieve. Yet, when people look back at Victor Ortiz today, very few begin with the title he won or the excitement he brought to the ring. Instead, they remember the controversies, the criticism, and the moments that changed the way fans viewed him forever. So, the question is, was Victor Ortiz's career really defined by just a couple of nights? Or were there deeper reasons why someone with so much talent never became the superstar many expected? What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Victor Ortiz was a boxer from Garden City, Kansas. Born to Mexican immigrant parents, Ortiz's childhood was anything but easy. His mother left the family when he was just 7 years old, and a few years later his father abandoned him as well, leaving Victor and his siblings to be raised by their older sister. Boxing became more than just a sport during those years. It gave him structure, discipline, and eventually a way to escape the circumstances he grew up in. He turned professional in 2004 at just 17 years old and quickly developed a reputation as one of boxing's most exciting young prospects. With explosive power, relentless pressure, and an aggressive style that made every fight entertaining, Ortiz began piling up knockout victories and climbed the ranks at an impressive pace. Before long, he had signed with Golden Boy Promotions, one of boxing's biggest promotional companies at the time, and many believed they had found one of the sport's next stars. By 2009, Ortiz had built an undefeated record of 24 wins with 19 knockouts and captured the WBC welterweight title. Everything seemed to be falling in place. He had youth, talent, marketability, and the backing of one of boxing's most powerful promoters. Then came the biggest test of his young career against Marcos Maidana. It was supposed to be the fight that proved Victor Ortiz belonged among boxing's elite. Instead, it became the night that would follow him for the rest of his career. Stunt number 1, the night that changed everything. If there's one fight that permanently shaped how boxing fans viewed Victor Ortiz, it was his battle with Marcos Maidana in June of 2009. Up until that point, Ortiz looked exactly like the type of young fighter promoters dream about. He was 24-0 with 19 knockouts, undefeated as a professional, and viewed as one of Golden Boy Promotions' brightest young stars. Many believed this fight would be another step towards superstardom. Instead, it became the beginning of a reputation he could never escape. The fight itself was chaos from the opening bell. Ortiz started brilliantly, using his speed and sharp combinations to hurt Maidana early. In the first round, he dropped Maidana with a perfectly timed left hook, immediately showing why so many people believed in his potential. He would also go on to drop Maidana twice in the second round alone. But Maidana got up, kept coming forward, and turned the fight into a brutal war. As the rounds went on, Ortiz found himself dealing with something he hadn't experienced before. Maidana's pressure never stopped. Every time Ortiz landed something big, Maidana answered with something just as dangerous, opening a cut over Ortiz's right eye. Ortiz was dropped twice during the fight, and although he beat the count both times, the momentum had completely shifted. After the second knockdown in the 6th round, Ortiz looked visibly beaten before he told the referee he just didn't want to continue. Moments later, he admitted in his post-fight interview that he didn't feel he deserved to take that kind of punishment. It was an honest answer, but honesty isn't always rewarded in boxing. He even apologized to Kansas, saying, "I'm sorry I made everybody look bad, Kansas." Fans, media, and fellow fighters immediately labeled him a quitter. Fair or unfair, that label followed him everywhere. Boxing has always celebrated toughness above almost everything else. Fighters are expected to keep going even when they're hurt, exhausted, or clearly losing. Many people stopped judging him by his talent and started judging him by that single decision. Every future setback was viewed through the lens of what happened against Maidana. Ortiz would eventually rebound, score impressive victories, and even become world champion, but none of those accomplishments erased the memory of that night. For many fans, June 27, 2009 became the moment Victor Ortiz went from boxing's future superstar to the fighter they believed would always look for a way out when things became difficult. Stunt number 2, the Mayweather fight changed everything. To Ortiz's credit, he didn't allow the loss to Marcos Maidana to end his career. Over the next 2 years, he rebuilt his reputation with impressive wins over fighters like Nate Campbell, Antonio Diaz, and most importantly, Andre Berto. His victory over Berto in April of 2011 was considered one of the best fights of the year. Ortiz survived 2 knockdowns, scored 2 of his own, and won a unanimous decision to capture the WBC Welterweight Championship. It was the biggest fight of his career and proved that he could recover from the criticism that followed the Maidana fight. That victory earned Ortiz the opportunity every boxer dreams of, a showdown with Floyd Mayweather Jr. It was the biggest payday of his career and the chance to become one of boxing's biggest stars. A win over Mayweather would completely change how people remember Victor Ortiz. Instead, the opposite happened. The fight was competitive early, but everything changed in the 4th round. Frustrated during an exchange, Ortiz charged forward and intentionally headbutted Mayweather, opening a cut above Floyd's eye. Referee Joe Cortez immediately stopped the action and deducted a point from Ortiz. Knowing he'd made a mistake, Ortiz repeatedly apologized to Mayweather by hugging him and trying to show there was no bad intentions. After Cortez instructed both fighters to continue, Ortiz was still focused on apologizing. As he leaned in again, Mayweather landed a left hook, followed immediately by a right hand that placed Ortiz firmly on his back pockets, confused and thinking about his dinner plans. The ending immediately became one of the most debated moments in boxing history. Some believed Mayweather simply did what every fighter is taught to do, protect yourself at all times. Others felt he took advantage of a distracted opponent who believed there would be another pause before the action resumed. Over a decade later, and fans still argue over whether the knockout was completely fair or violated the unwritten rules of sportsmanship. For me, I believe it was completely clean. Unfortunately for Ortiz, that controversy became bigger than the fight itself. Instead of being remembered for becoming a world champion just months earlier, his name became permanently attached to one of boxing's most controversial finishes. It was another defining moment that overshadowed one of the biggest accomplishments of his career. Stunt number 3, he never became the star many expected. At just 24 years old, Victor Ortiz had already accomplished what most professional boxers never do. He was a world champion, had headlined major events, fought on pay-per-view, and shared the ring with Floyd Mayweather Jr. On paper, it looked like he had plenty of time to rebuild his career. Instead, the years that followed became a steady decline. The first major setback came less than a year after the Mayweather fight. In June of 2012, Ortiz faced Josecito Lopez in what was supposed to be a tune-up before a potential rematch with Andre Berto. Instead, Lopez landed a right hand that fractured Ortiz's jaw. Unable to continue, Ortiz suffered another stoppage loss in a fight he was heavily favored to win. Just like the Maidana fight years earlier, critics questioned his toughness, even though this time the injury was legitimate. Things never really recovered from there. Ortiz returned nearly 2 years later after undergoing knee surgery, but the momentum he'd built before becoming world champion was gone. He fought sporadically, suffered more injuries, and struggled to put together any consistency. Losses to Luis Collazo and Andre Berto in their rematch pushed him even further away from title contention. Every time it looked like he might build some momentum, another setback followed. Part of the problem was the welterweight division itself. During Ortiz's era, the division was loaded with elite talent. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Tim Bradley, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, and later Errol Spence Jr. all occupied the top of the division. There was very little room for a fighter who couldn't consistently stay active or string together meaningful victories. As the years passed, Ortiz also began pursuing acting, appearing in several movies and television projects. While it gave him opportunities outside the ring, it also signaled that boxing was no longer the clear focus it had once been. His appearances became less frequent, and his relevance in the sport slowly faded. Victor Ortiz still finished his career as a world champion and earned far more than most fighters ever will. But when people discuss his career today, they rarely start with his accomplishments. They remember the moments that damaged his reputation, the controversies that followed him, and the potential they believed was never fully realized. For a fighter once viewed as one of boxing's brightest young stars, that's probably the biggest disappointment of all. All in all, I think Victor Ortiz's career is a reminder that a fighter's reputation can sometimes become more powerful than their accomplishments. This wasn't someone who failed to reach the top. He did reach it. He became a world champion, headlined major fights, earned life-changing money, and spent years competing against some of the best welterweights of his era. Most professional boxers would gladly take that career. The problem is that boxing fans never judged Victor Ortiz by his resume alone. The loss to Marcos Maidana in the way he did created a reputation that followed him for the rest of his career, and the controversial finish against Floyd Mayweather only reinforced it in the eyes of many. Fair or not, those moments became the first things people remember whenever his name came up. At the same time, it's also fair to say Ortiz never did enough after winning the championship to change the narrative. Injuries, inactivity, and losses kept him from building the kind of second chapter that could have redefined his legacy. Because of that, Victor Ortiz remains one of boxing's biggest what-if stories. Not because he never had the talent, but because the moments that should have defined his career were ultimately overshadowed by the moments that everyone still talks about today. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.